What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Rear Naked Recap UFC 263. On an entertainment standpoint, one of the best cards we've seen in a long time. On a gambling standpoint, so close, so frustrating. But at the end of the day, probably for the best, because had Jamahal Hill won, you might have never seen little Cody ever again. I may be dead in a beach in Hawaii somewhere. Unfortunately, he lost, and so I'll probably be dead in some beach in Canada. Not quite as luxurious. Starting off the night, we got Carlos Felipe taking on Jake Collier. The pick ended up being Jake Collier. I also thought the fight would go the distance, sitting at like minus 150. You got two big heavyweights, but you got two heavyweights that have both decent durability and not a ton of big power. So with Jake Collier, I mean, yeah, we all know he's a former middleweight and wasn't really big on knockout power as a middleweight. Didn't even fight at light heavyweight, jumps up right to heavyweight. And bad showing against Tom Aspinall. You give him a pass on that one. Aspinall's pretty legit. But the fight with John Vellante doesn't have a great chin, right? Not known for his endurance, and also not a heavyweight. So to hit the guy, 133 significant times and not put him over, good showing in terms of the cardio, showing in terms of the pace from Collier, but not with the big power. Felipe Silva, Carlos Felipe, he's kind of in a similar situation. He's had 3 fights in the UFC. Now this is his 4th, but previously everything had gone to decision. Loves to wing the big bombs, throws that right hand with bad intentions. But again, everything was seemingly going to decision. So thought this one would go the distance, but the official pick was Collier. I didn't chase that Collier by decision, but all the same, probably for the best. First round, I thought Collier definitely wins it. He's got the output. He's got the pace. Again, for a heavyweight, a lot of people laughed, myself included, right? We laughed him off when he showed up to make weight against Aspinall. We laughed it off after he got knocked out by Aspinall. But since then, it's like he's a decent heavyweight. There's not a whole lot of guys that are big men that have great, mobility, good output, and a good pace. A lot of these guys are kind of one and done. They'll throw the one big strike. So Collier's serviceable, not elite, not high level, but a guy that's going to go out there and put some pace on you. And for the first round, he does exactly that. Carlos Felipe kind of does have a decent gas tank as well, though. But yeah, Collier lands the better strikes. Second round, this is kind of how the fight comes down to the second round, right? Who wins the second round? Because again, you've got Collier's landing the more punches, but it just seems like the body work's trying to add up for Carlos Felipe. He's stinging him in the body. I wouldn't say slowing him down, but it does come down to body language. And on one hand, you've got Carlos Felipe, center of the octagon, moving forward. And again, he's thick Diaz, he's waving you on. He's kind of getting your face. It looks good to the judges. You have Collier landing the more volume, but he's backing up. He's backing up, and he kind of does look like he's winded at times from the body work. So I guess personally, I do give it a slight advantage to Carlos Felipe. But I know a lot of people disagree with that. They had Collier up 2 rounds going into the third. Again, I think it was very close. And I'm a guy that did have Jake Collier. You could make a case either side. One guy's got volume. One guy's got what, aesthetically looks good. Is that enough? Maybe not. Just depend who the judges are. And then that third round, again, it's close. It's just Carlos Felipe is landing the better shot. He's backing him up. I guess you give the third round to Carlos Felipe. It ends up being a close decision, but it's a split that goes Felipe's way. This is the thing with close decisions. This one was a close decision. If Collier wins, again, I don't complain. If Felipe wins, I complain. It was a very close fight. But robberies are supposed to be like, hey, man, this was a shutout. This was a walk in the park. This was an easy win. And so you can't really scream robbery either way. Both men have their moments. It was a super fun fight. It was a great way to kick off a card. But again, it was middling heavyweights. Glad that the fight went the distance. Wrong on the Collier side of things. So be it. We had it low on the parlays anyways, just because the confidence level wasn't high either side. But fun. And both guys will factor into the division for more fun fights at a lower level. But I don't know how much real improvement there'll be there. Ziam versus Luigi Vendramini. I go 0-2 to start tonight. I got Luigi Vendramini taking on Ziam. Again, the whole narrative for me on Vendramini is that we saw him versus Zaleski dos Santos in his debut a few years ago. Takes the fight at short notice, up 170 pounds, looks strong physically, was able to take him down, was able to take his back in that first round, and then gets tired out, gets knocked out. You see him come back, 2 years later against Jason Ayari, and hands look good, heavy power, kind of one of these guys that'll explode in the pocket and land a big shot. Ayari is a guy that went 3 rounds of Darren Till. Durability wasn't an issue for him, but he goes in and gets that knockout win. So there was a little bit to like there from Vendramini, whereas the flip side to Ziam, and I know a lot of the people that I had spoken to pre-hand were taking Ziam, is, he's 24. He's a much better striker. His clinch work's looking a lot better. Yeah, he got taken down by Don Madge. Yeah, he was getting taken down at will by Jamie Malarkey, but he's only 24 years old. Like, once he adds those wrinkles to his game and you're forced to stand with him, he's going to be a problem. And that's kind of how it plays out in the first round. Vendramini just can't gauge the distance whatsoever. Ziam keeps flashing that kick. He flashes the knee up the middle a lot. It keeps Vendramini honest from trying to attempt the takedown attempt. But it's the jab, man. The kid's so long that if you're going to stand in front of him, especially at distance, and not, force the action, at you. It's a decisive round for Ziam, but it's not like he does any big damage, cause any big damage. He just outpoints him and is the victor of the round. Second round, it's much of the same, does the exact same stuff. I really thought Vendramini would push the action for the takedowns more, and I guess he kind of did. He goes 0 for 5 in the first 2 rounds of shooting his takedowns. I honestly think Ziam's takedown defense has improved a lot. He's cool. He's controlled. He's up 2 rounds. This is a losing bet for me. The third round, the Vendramini I thought might have showed up earlier, realizes he's down 2 rounds and decides to show up. And it's easily the most decisive round of the fight. And it's a good round for Vendramini. He goes out there. The takedown doesn't work initially. So what does he do? He hurts him. You know, he goes out there. The one issue with being a tall fighter like Ziam is that he stands upright, right? He's got a tall man defense, where sometimes they'll just stand head straight up. So if you can close that distance and put an overhand right on the mark, you might be able to hit them, and they're in a vulnerable position, so to speak. So he hurts Ziam, gets his attention, takes him down, fishes for a couple solid submission attempts. Ziam gets back up, and Vendramini gets up. Cardio looked good. He'd never been to decision in his career. All of his wins inside the distance, his long career loss inside the distance. Just what is his cardio going to look like? And here it is in the third round in a fight that he's losing. You know, adrenaline rush from dropping him early, from hurting him early. Sorry. You know, the adrenaline rush from the takedown attempts, squeezing on his neck, and when the fight stands back up, he keeps right back on and goes right back up. Now, credit to Ziam, even though you might think, you know, he was hurt and he ate a barrage of shots. Kid's chin's pretty good, man. Like, he never really looked phased. It looked like he was fading. It looked like he was certainly losing the round, and he was in survival mode. Like, whenever he would get space, instead of using that jab, you know, and flashing that kick, he's on his bicycle trying to get out of there. So if this is a 5-round fight, you'd give it to Vendramini, or at least you would say Vendramini's a live dog going into those championship rounds. But this is a prelim fight. It's a 3-round fight. You can't give up the first 2 rounds. Luigi Vendramini did, and unfortunately he loses. Now, there's a case for a 10-8 round in that third. The case is not that round is a singular 10-8 on its own. The case is, because the first 2 rounds are very close, that this third round is now by far the most decisive round of the fight. Should it not merit, geez, you know what? Vendramini did more in that single round than the 2 slight edge, but I shouldn't say slight edge. Ziam wins the first 2 rounds. It's just like, there's damage done in the third. There's submission attempts done in the third. If this is Japan, it's Vendramini all day, because Japan would score it as a whole, not round per round, as a whole, right? I was always say, back in high school, we'd go at lunchtime, we'd go watch a fight in the back path and go back to class, right? And nobody walked out and we're just like, oh, dude, you know, Luke won the first 4 minutes, but then he got his ass kicked the last 2. No, it's just like, dude, Luke got his ass kicked, because that's how it ended, right? Because one guy's going to go back to, you know, third class science or third period science, and the other guy's got to go home because he's busted up. But the other guy won the first 4 minutes of the fight. Like, what are you talking about? It's how it ends in Japan, in the UFC, in North America, in pretty much every type of regulated MMA. It's a round by round, and I don't disagree with that. Ziam wins the first 2 rounds. Vendramini won the third. If you're not a 10-8 guy, then Ziam won the fight. The judges weren't 10-8s on this particular fight. One of them was. It was a majority decision, so one of them agreed with that assessment. The other 2 didn't, and it's a Ziam victory. Again, I had the over 1.5. I didn't really believe in Vendramini's ability to go the entire distance because, again, had never been the distance. But I thought that if anything, it would get the over 1.5. It was a juiced-up price, but again, I'm 0-2 to start off the night. Now we got Steven Peterson versus Chase Hooper. I'm a guy that's made some bad reads in the past. I'm a guy that's put a little too much faith in a little in the wrong stock, so to speak. I'm a guy that sometimes, at times, bought into a little bit of hype. But I was not going to play fool on this one, my friend. Chase Hooper. Sorry, I just realized my mic's over here. Chase Hooper, my God. We've already realized at this point, you know, he's 21 years old. He's very young. He's very green. At this stage of his UFC career, he's going to need to be fighting either the lowest level opponent or fighting on the regional scene, preferably fighting on the regional scene. Because he's in the UFC, they've got to give him the lowest level of opponent, and those guys are just too much for him. Now, Bruce Leroy is not the lowest level guy, but when he 30-26 Hooper across the board, it was a significant red flag right there that he's non-competitive against a guy like Bruce Leroy, who's a quintessential journeyman, gatekeeper type guy, very experienced, don't get me wrong, but, you know, we chalked it up to a learning experience. Now against Pete Barrett. Now, the result is a victory over Pete Barrett, but anybody that takes the 13 minutes to watch that fight would clearly know that Chase Hooper is just not at this level yet. So even if he was a fantastic ground guy, even if his BJJ
was absolutely that next level. He does not have the wrestling to get the fight to the ground, nor does he have the striking to have a plan B, fallback plan, or at the very least, to keep the guy honest, strike with him a little bit to set up the takedown. If there's no threat of the striking, then the guy's just going to know he's just going to shoot the takedown. Then they see it coming, then they stuff it out. You have to be able to mix it in. And to this point, Hooper just doesn't have that. That became evidently clear in this Peterson fight, because similar to the Pete Barrett fight, Pete Barrett represents that lowest level of guy. Pete Barrett chops him up standing for 2 rounds, stops the takedowns for 2 rounds, and then falls into a bonehead decision. Not a bonehead decision. Hooper did get the fight to the ground and then locks up that leg lock in the 3rd. Fair. That wasn't going to happen to Ocho Peterson. I mean, Peterson's been around. He's fought a lot of guys, and he's got a black belt, man. He's a sneaky good grappler. But he did represent the lowest level of competitor that they could have given Hooper, only because he's a 50-50 guy in the UFC. He's got 8 career losses already. He's been off 2.5 years. He's pulled out of his last 2 fights due to injury. If Hooper's going to defeat somebody, it would be Peterson. Peterson actually comes in and misses weight, comes in at like 148.5, 149.5. So, bad. And that would help him out when he didn't have a bad weight cut, because Hooper's got a good gas tank. He could have theoretically made it happen if it was a really bad weight cut and Peterson gassed out. And the other thing is, because Hooper was primarily going to try to grapple this entire fight, the extra weight is obviously going to help out Peterson. So 1st round, Peterson lands the better strikes. Whenever Hooper would get this thing to the ground, he's always on his back. He's fishing for submissions, but Peterson stuffs him out, and Peterson just lands a better ground and pound. The 1st round is awesome, man. Very thrilling. And you can tell that Hooper is most definitely making improvements. But one, he's 21 years old. What is anybody doing at 21 years old? Not fighting at an elite level as a professional athlete against some 32-year-old guy out of Fortis MMA in Texas who's been grinding and fighting professionally for a decade. Like, that's a very tough spot for a 21-year-old. The other thing, nobody wants to say it, I'm going to say it. This guy's girlfriend is dragging him down. I'll keep with me on this one, right? If you put Chase Hooper in a big gym, in an ATT, in an American Kickboxing Academy, in an Alliance MMA, in an MMA lab, in Sanford MMA, in anywhere that he's going to be able to go and fight guys like Peterson every single day, he's going to make a lot of improvements. He's young, he's talented, he's got a good chin, he's got good cardio, he's got determination, and he's got an okay ground game. He needs to add the striking, he needs to add the wrestling, but he's got everything else to make a fighter. He's got a long, lanky build. The problem is he's stuck in his hometown. He's got a girlfriend. And let me tell you something. When I was 21-year-old and I had a girlfriend, you make bad decisions, my friend. When you're young and you're in love, that's it. And I think he's stuck in his hometown. When you check anything from social media, it's like he went and hung out with Ben Askren for a week or 2. Clearly didn't really learn anything about wrestling, but filmed some cool content for UFC Fight Pass. And then beyond that, he's just kind of back in the regular confines of his gym. So can he grapple? Sure, he can grapple, but he's not an elite level grappler. He's like, and I made this comparison in the preview shows, he's just like Jordan Levitt. He's a good grappler, but if you can't strike and you can't wrestle, you're not going to win fights progressing in the UFC. So I'm glad I didn't take the bait on Hooper again, because he was like even money all week, and then he ends up going off as the favorite because of some late money that rains down on him. And again, the first 2 rounds, he's just he would get the fight to the ground off his back, and you just got Peterson landing the better strikes the entire time. I had it scored 30-27 personally. 2 judges had it 30-27. 1 gave a round to Hooper. But at 21, he's not a write-off. He could conceivably get better. The problem is he's not going to get better in the UFC. Not losing 2, 3, 4 fights in a row against guys that are low level. What he needs to do is go back to the regional scene and fight for LFA and fight in some smaller promotions against some mid-level guys and some ex-UFC veterans who have been released from the promotion, and build way back up, get your confidence going, and work on the different wrinkles of your game. But it's hard to go out there and be like, geez, I'm barely even striking in camp, and now I'm in the UFC and I'm forced to strike with a guy. And Peterson, who's very wild, he likes to spin, he likes to chuck the right hand. Like, he's kind of a reckless bulldozer type opponent that's tough to get ready for. So I'm not writing off Hooper. It's just I would have zero interest in betting Hooper for the foreseeable future. And again, glad I didn't there. So even though we get back in the win column, first win of the night, we're 1-2 here. It didn't go good after that. So Matt Fravola, as far as the parlay side of things, that I put Fravola too high up? Yeah, certainly did. And we knew that the path for McKinney would be to go out there and knock him out within the first round, because Fravola had been knocked out by Polo Reyes in the 1 round, knocked down twice, knocked out in the first minute. But then the Lando Venata fight, he also got knocked down twice in the first round. And whenever he's able to get out of that first round, that's why they call him the steamroller, because he starts to pick up steam and starts to put it on you and gains momentum and just grinds you. Being out of a camp that features Aljamain Sterling and Merab Dvalishvili, like, this guy does embrace the grind a lot more than he has that athleticism and that early explosiveness. And that's the stuff that McKinney had. McKinney basically goes and finishes all of his fights early in the first round. His last 2 wins on the LFA scene, again, both first round finishes. And when he tends to lose, it's him putting a lot of pressure on the guy and getting caught. So it was essential that Fravola would survive the first round. And the reason why he wasn't a good parlay piece is because it was playing with dynamite. If these guys fought 10 times, based on what we see, it seems like McKinney beats him 10 times. But if McKinney, for whatever reason, doesn't land that 1-2 straight out the pipe, and doesn't knock him out right away, or for whatever reason, that first round bell goes off, that's when Fravola takes over. It's just, it never even came close. So McKinney's actually a pretty scary prospect, considering, again, he's a guy that's out there training with Michael Chiesa and improving and getting better. And is he a first round guy? Potentially, but he's going to be a hell of a handful for a lot of those guys in the first round. And he's not a one-trick pony, right? It's not like he needs to go out there and use his striking to get the quick knockout. He's a hell of a wrestler, man. Again, very explosive, very dynamic, but you look at his fight in Contender Series versus Sean Woodson, again, he loses because it gets out of the first round, but it's like the takedowns are quick, they're on point. I do think that he's making improvements. Now, the only thing that goes wrong for him this fight, because he gets a 7-second knockout, I don't think they officially announced. I think he got a bonus. I think he officially got a $50,000 bonus. But he backflips and busts his knee. Like, does that take him out of action for 4 or 5 months now? Like, that's just a crazy way to. You win your UFC debut. You're short notice. 2-1 underdog. You knock the guy out in 7 seconds. The worm, like, what the hell? But anyways, pretty exciting for McKinney. And again, he could have a very bright future. I think he can make a lot of improvements. For Fravola, it's no knock on him. Again, that was the way he was going to lose this fight, and that is the way that he does lose fights, is he gets caught early. If he fought Frank Camacho, his original scheduled opponent, Frank could have also caught him in the first round, but more than likely, Fravola would able to get that grind going and made something happen. He's going to be a problem for a lot of guys at 155 pounds because he's going to be able to grind them and give them that problem. But the guys that pack that big stinging power, the guys that are fast, they're sharp, and they have good hand speed, they're more likely going to knock out Fravola more times than not. And that's what we saw. Kanzad versus Alexis Davis. Again, this is a really fun fight, and this comes down to what kind of judge you are. What do you base the fight on? First round got Kanzad, the jab's working for her. She's Alexis Davis again. It's the same story on her every time, is that she does not move her head. So she is there to get hit. But my God, this girl's durable, and she is a zombie, man. She just keeps coming at you the entire time. Over the years, her Muay Thai has always been probably her strong suit. She has added that ground game in the BJJ black belt. I guess more recently, but at heart, it's that striking. And whereas she doesn't move her head and her hands are just so at best, she really does take the leg kicks to heart. And that's been one of her best weapons throughout the course of her career, is that leg kick. Will you counter and punch her in the face as she's throwing the leg kick? Sure. But because she has so much durability and a cast iron chin, she'll gladly take the one shot. She'll gladly take the 1-2 to land that kick in hopes that it'll immobilize you. And more times than not, it does. It worked against Sabina Mazo. And in the first round, you could see she was trying to get it going, but it's early, right? Penny Kanzad's not feeling those effects. She landed the best strikes throughout for the first round. Again, she had the better technical boxing, and I really like how she held her hands. She was always defending herself. She was always protecting her head. Looks good in the first round. Second round, zombie mode takes over, man. And Alexis Davis just refuses to go away. And now is when we see the leg kicks are starting to build up. It's a close round. Both of them are landing great shots, but it seems like Davis is wearing it a lot better. And where's the legs starting to get compromised? The punches from Kenny Kanzad don't have the same steam on it. So in the first round, she's snapping Davis's head back. They look good. They sound good. And even though Davis is hard to hurt, she is feeling those shots. In the second round, she's just walking through everything. And a lot of that is Penny can't put any weight on that lead leg, and she can't really sit down on those punches. She still fights a good second round, being that she's compromised. But at the end of the second round, the leg buckles, and she gets taken down with a foot sweep right at the end of the second round, and then the buzzer rings. And it's like those last 2 moments, 100% seal it for Alexis Davis. We got a 1-1. We've also got momentum heading in Alexis Davis's way. Because what? Is Penny Kanzad's leg certainly going to recover in 1 minute? But it did. It actually did. She comes out in the third round, and she's fighting a lot better. Again, the jab was there all night, and the jab would set up that right hand. The counter left hook was there for her as well. She used it extremely effectively. And when Davis is such a pressure fighter that in the third round, she realizes it's probably 1-1. Her corners told her it's 1-1. She's trying to put that pressure on, but in pressuring somebody, you're being a little bit reckless and you're leaving openings. And for somebody that does not move their head when they pressure, those openings were going to be there. Again, a very close round. I had it for Pannie Kanzad. I could see people making the argument for Alexis Davis, and it goes Pannie Kanzad's way. A lot of people will be like, I can't believe that was unanimous. But that I've always thought that logic was weird, right? If I think this person wins and I cloned myself 3 times, then the 3 of us would all agree that Pannie Kanzad won, right? Well, why would it be a split? If that's what you believe fighter A won, how come you now think somebody else needs to believe fight? Because that now you're thinking that fighter B actually won too. What's your actual opinion? My opinion is Pannie Kanzad won. She won round 1. She won round 3. Well, very close fight, very fun fight. And on a lesser card, fight like that gets maybe not $50,000 fight of the night money, but certainly stands out. It was a back and forth affair. You know, you get some acknowledgement. This card happened to be a hell of a banger, so it kind of got buried a little bit. But you know, a very fun fight. Respect to both women. Again, the play as well was fight goes the distance minus 325. You know, not a whole lot to be made there, but both girls were more decision fighters and one girls were more durable. So that was cool there. And then Pannie Kanzad by decision was minus 135. Still not a very good price tag. But again, they knew if she was going to win, she was going to win by decision. So they didn't really improve the money line to the decision prop all that much, although it was decent enough. The main thing is after a 1-3 start now, we close this thing up 2-3. Movsar Evloev versus Hakeem Dawadu. I, for whatever reason, forgot to put this out in the tweet, like in the parlays. I know on Dogger Pass, he's leaning Hakeem Dawadu, but said that could easily change. By the time I did propping you up, I was on Movsar Evloev. I don't want to take the cowards away and be like, well, I was on him, even though I didn't make it official. But it was Evloev, and that he just seemed to have like more pace. One thing with Hakeem Dawadu is that he, you know, in the Bokniak fight, he threw a lot. But in a lot of his other fights, he's just a tad too hesitant. And against Zubair Tuhugov, even though he wins, he is too hesitant. He's too hesitant for my liking. He doesn't let his hands go. Takedown defense is good, but a lot of that is he's waiting for you to shoot. He's anticipating for you to shoot, so he's not letting his hands go. Evloev figured to go out there and be able to strike a little bit and wrestle a little bit. And the main worry was that Hakeem Dawadu would stuff the takedowns. Man, couldn't be further from the truth. In the first 2 rounds, it's just like very easy for Movsar Evloev to get this fight to the ground. Hakeem Dawadu had a tendency to give up his back a lot of the time. He would just kind of like roll over out of the single leg, give up his back, go up against the cage, and that would just allow Evloev to take him to get like a rear waist body lock, and then just drag him to the ground, rinse and repeat. If you're looking for domination as a 10-8 round, I don't. I look for damage. If you're looking for domination, there's a case in the first 2 rounds for a 10-8. Like he absolutely dominates Hakeem Dawadu, pillar to post, not a whole lot of damage. But again, this fight is not even close. And then in that 3rd round, you know, Zabit Magomedsharipov, this guy routinely does not want to fight a 5-round. You know, he'll headline a card for you, but he won't make it a 5-round affair. Just does not want to. When you see him fight, he looks like $1 million for the first 2 rounds. And then the 3rd, it's like, this guy he doesn't have a great gas tank, and his management's smart enough to not book him in those 5-rounders. So he cruises in 3s all day. Evloev is a former M1 global champion. You know, he has fought into the later rounds. He does seemingly have a great gas tank. And when you see him put the kind of pace that he does on guys, you know, he has no problem. In the Mike Grundy fight, Grundy had taken him down 6 times, tried to choke him with the darts. It was a fairly hectic pace fight, and Evloev's cardio just checks out no problem. And this fight with Dawadu, he completely dominates him for the first 2 rounds, and maybe that is what takes the energy out of him. But in the 3rd, he now just doesn't quite have the strength to muster up the takedown. And now you see the reason why Hakeem Dawadu could have been considered a live dog in the first place. Because similar to a Luigi Vendramini, he just didn't get going fast enough. The first 2 rounds, he's giving up those takedowns and he's losing the round clearly. And then the 3rd round, as soon as he stuffs the takedowns, now you do see Hakeem Dawadu is a better striker. Now you do see he does have that power. He's a finesse guy. And he does start to hurt him. He does start to get to him late. It's just too little too late. You know, Movsar Evloev is able to survive. The guy's undefeated for a reason. He has great durability, good ring IQ, and ability to survive. When he'd be getting hit with those left hands, he would shoot the takedown. He would clinch up at the very least and just try to slow this thing down. Back away, backpedal. I know I'm up 2 rounds. And even if this guy was to score a 10-8 round for whatever reason, he wasn't going to. It wasn't that dominant. Evloev likely has a 10-8 in the bank himself at this point, so all he needs to do is survive, and he does exactly that. No problem. Clean victory for him. It shows that he is ready to give top 10 or top 15. No doubt about that. But if the UFC was to book him, because now they're doing co-main events as 5 rounds, if they were to book him in a main event or a co-main event slot against a big name, it could be trouble. Now he's young. He's still got room to grow. This is a good learning experience. But if there was one knock on him, sure, it's that he completely did fall apart in that third round. Other than that, gets the victory. And again, I think that if you're going to back Evoev, you're looking for this fight to go the distance. You guys know me at this point. If you're watching this recap video, you know me. I'm a fight goes the distance guy. You're fighting at an elite level. There's two good guys. Fights usually go in the distance. So we got that at least. And then the Evoev by decision was a much better price tag than the straight up money line. Regardless, Lauren Murphy versus Calderwood. Again, fight goes the distance, but this is another minus 325 fight goes the distance. So there wasn't a ton to be made there. The odds makers knew what's up. It's how it is. This is another interesting fight to score, right? In the first round, I personally gave it to Calderwood. I thought she landed the better strikes. Lauren Murphy's pressuring. Lauren Murphy's trying to get to her. And Lauren Murphy had some moments. She also landed some good strikes. But it just seemed to me like the kick game from Calderwood, the distance management, landed, again, in my opinion, the better shots. Landed a couple good knees to the body from the clinch. I gave it a slight advantage to Joanne Calderwood. But a close round. That second round, Lauren Murphy succeeds in getting the fight to the ground, and almost immediately, she gets this thing up against the cage and to the ground like a minute into the second round, and then proceeds to have about 4 minutes of some very dominant top control over Joanne Calderwood. Not dominant in the sense that she's smashing her and getting some great ground and pounding, but solid shots were landing, right? Positionally, she held Calderwood down almost the entire time. This is a very clear round for Lauren Murphy. So again, in my personal opinion, we got a 1-1 going to the third, but if you're really liberal with these 10-8 rounds, which there were 10-8 rounds on this card, a bunch of them, some of them agreed with, some of them I didn't agree with. The second round was a lot more dominant for Lauren Murphy than the first round was for Calderwood. Like Calderwood at best edged it out in the first round, whereas the second round was like clear as day Lauren Murphy. In the third round, it's like, again, momentum is in Murphy's side, and knowing that you can just get the fight up against the cage, drag her to the ground, and when the fight is on the ground, she really didn't have, any answer to it. It seemed like an easy game plan from Lauren Murphy in the third round. Go out there and execute just that. But I don't know, call it fatigue or bad ring IQ, but she did not press the action for the takedown in the third round. Instead, she chose to stand with Calderwood, and Calderwood caught her second win. She's probably really frustrated from being grounded for the second round. So as soon as the fight would start standing, she had bad intentions. She wasn't scared to let the kicks go. She kept kicking her. She landed some great knees to the body again. She put on that classical Muay Thai on full display. And again, I thought did enough to win the third round. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a close fight, a good fight, but Lauren Murphy lost it for herself. She lost it for herself when she failed to just go back to the well, and the commentators had mentioned, well, maybe it's fatigue, but her body language wasn't completely off. And even though she attempted, I believe, 1, maybe 2 takedowns in the round, they were very half-hearted. She didn't commit to anything. And she certainly didn't commit to pressing Calderwood against the cage, which is something that she always has success against anybody. So like, why not go back to that well? Maybe she thought she was up 2-0, but being how close that first round was, like, how could you have faith in that? So I scored the fight for Calderwood. The judges didn't agree. So the Calderwood ticket loses. The Calderwood ticket by decision loses. We had a fight goes the distance, but because it was 325, it wasn't enough to offset the balance. And again, it's a close fight. With Lauren Murphy, she did the same thing to Andrea Lee. I thought she lost. She got outstruck, but she's gritty and she comes at you. And it all comes down to 2 of those 3 guys sitting cage side. And what did they think? Well, what did they prefer? Because it's not always the same 3 people, and they don't all have the same 3 beliefs. So it's not a robbery. It's not a robbery by any stretch of the imagination. Lauren Murphy could have very easily won that fight. I can't sit here and be like, man. I'm just saying. That's how I had it scored. Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. First round. See, the way the first fight goes, right? It's at 185, and Stewart's on short notice, but Anders just wrecking balls this guy and hurts him and gets himself in no contest due to an illegal knee. But again, leading into fight week, I'm very adamant that, like, that's not Eric Anders. He does not usually let his hands go. Of him not letting his hands go. And then in that last time, he definitely did. And then the flip side is Darren Stewart's never been knocked out. He's extremely durable. But he had taken the last fight on short notice, and at 185, it was a bad weight cut. So this fight at 205, Stewart's got a full camp. He's not going to have a bad weight cut, and Anders' power is not going to translate as much at 205 as it was at 185, and he doesn't let his hands go anyways. So the fight to go the distance was minus 150, and that looked good. The Anders side of things, which was what I was on, was minus 150, and the Anders by decision was like plus 220. So those were all good price tags. And in the first round, I'm feeling like an idiot. Like, he doesn't do anything, man. He does not do anything. He stands in front of Stewart. He leads 5 leg kicks in a right hand. Like, it wasn't like Stewart was particularly doing anything as well. But then they clinch up against the cage. And it's very apparent that Eric Anders is much stronger in the clinch. Like, he's able to press up Darren Stewart up against the cage. Stewart would spend a minute, maybe not quite a minute and a half, but let's say 45 seconds to a minute up against the cage. He would reverse and press Anders into the cage, and Anders would spend all of 10 seconds there at most, and then just re-reverse. Whenever the fight was in the clinch up against the cage, it was advantage Anders. But here's the thing. Fucking nothing's happening, right? So those 6 leg kicks and a right hand for Darren Stewart are winning him this round. Nothing else is happening against the cage. And then right as I'm thinking, you know what? I don't know, maybe a bad judge could give that first round to Anders based on the cage control. Stewart takes him down right at the end of the first round. So this is a very clear as day Darren Stewart first round. Second round is the exact is that it's Eric Anders that lands the 2 or 3 good strikes, and then it gets into the clinch again. So in the clinch, he's the stronger man. He's pressing him against the cage. He's not having problems there. He's trying to get the fight to the ground, and he can't, but he's still controlling the clinch. And whereas it was Stewart had slightly better strikes, losing the clinch in the first round, now it's Anders very slightly better strikes in the second round. He's controlling the clinch. Nothing happens. They separate. It's anybody's round. And then Anders smokes him with 2 uppercuts. And that, to me, again, you had Stewart with the little takedown at the end of the first. 2 uppercuts seals the deal for Anders. We got a 1-1 going into the third round. Third round, Darren Stewart scores the takedown. And honestly, if you could have seen me live, I was like, shit. We're in trouble, man. There's 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes left in this round. Darren Stewart just got the takedown just like he did in the first round. Nothing's happened in this fight. He just needs to ride it. He gets that takedown. Anders gets to a hip and sweeps. Just gets on top of him, sweeps. And that, my friend, was the TSN turning point of the night. Because it was all downhill for Darren Stewart after that. Like he got the takedown. And that one singular mistake allows Anders to get on top of him. And then Anders proceeds to beat the shit out of him. So excellent. Now, again, this goes back to the argument for a 10-8 round. Nothing happened in the first round, man. Nothing. But a takedown for Stewart seals it for him. Nothing happens in the second round, but maybe like a punch or 2 seals it for Anders. And the third round, it is a mollywhopping. It is a straight. Anders is just clubbing him. He even attempts the arm triangle choke at one point. Well, he threatens with it. But for the most part, just pure domination, beats him up. I wouldn't have that as a 10-8 round in any other fight, other than the fact that we know what happened in the first 2, and it was nothing, right? The third round is so much more decisive that it has to be counted for something. So I had a 2-1 Anders anyways, but if we do get a 10-8 here, the worst case scenario, would be a draw, which it shouldn't have been, and we get the victory for Eric Anders. Main card starts, Brad Riddell versus Drew Dober. At this point in the prelims, I'm lost the first 2. Peterson's won. Lost McKinney. That's 1-3. Panny and Mobzar win. That's 3-3. Lose Murphy. Win Anders. I'm sitting 4-4 after 8 fights going into the main card. The fights go the distance props are all saving me because, again, I'm 4-4. It's not particularly nothing to be proud of. But we're getting a good read on these fights going to decision. That's cool. We got Brad Riddell versus Dober, and again, I got this fight going the distance. Both guys are great strikers, and both guys have good durability. Dober's issue is maybe guys will try to wrestle him down, like Islam Makhachev. But as far as his chin, cast iron, you just see the shape of the thing. Like, that thing's compact and built to battle, and he's able to rely on it. The flip side to that with Brad Riddell is like, Brad Riddell is a clean, precise striker. He's a guy that had a long, lengthy Muay Thai career, unaccredited Muay Thai career. He's the city kickboxing gym head kickboxing coach. And again, we would see the marvel of Izzy Adesanya later on, but these New Zealand kickboxer guys, like they're clean, man. They're crisp. Do they have to add the wrestling and the grappling to their game to get to that next level? Yes, but you're seeing they are. If he can just keep a fight standing, he's going to be a problem for everybody. Dober wasn't figuring to take him down. Even if Dober did take him down, Riddell's got an excellent get-up game. We saw that in the Magomed Mustafayev fight, amongst others, is that, yeah, he pretty much always does get taken down in all of his fights, but he always gets back up. And he had to keep this fight standing. He had the speed advantage, he had the output advantage, and he's technically the but Dober has the power, Dober has the durability, and Dober had a slight size advantage on him. So got the fight going the distance. It's going to be a banger. It's going to be a thriller. It's the head prelim of the card. It's been a great undercard so far. And, we're rolling on Brad Riddell straight up. He's the underdog, -135. We've got Brad Riddell by decision, which was +240. And then the fight to go the distance, which was -160. Wasn't actually that good of a price tag, considering how that first round went. My God. Dober has the power, absolutely. And you know what? Both of them come out landing some nice shots, but every time Riddell lands on Dober, it's this like Dober's having a Sunday stroll in the park. Like it's not affecting him in the slightest bit. And when Dober would land that same shot on Riddell, it's stinging him. You also do see that Dober is physically. So Riddell's going to have trouble backing him up. Dober's going to probably be the one advancing. If he advances and he causes a firefight to happen, he's winning these firefight exchanges. And Brad Riddell, to his credit, he's standing his ground. He's not looking to back out of there and use his jab and try to matador him and use his distance. He's standing in the pocket and winging hooks. And again, he's landing a couple good ones early, but it doesn't go in his favor. He gets hit clean and he drops. Of course, what better in the right mind wouldn't be worried, because we're definitely worried for Brad Riddell at this point, but great ring IQ, man. He shoots to the reactionary takedown right away, ties him up. Even though he's not able to get Dober down, he's slowing the pace of this down. Now, also, it would look like he'd get Dober down a little bit, and Dober was able to just kind of pump back up, so to speak. But in my personal opinion, maybe Dober's not exactly the best counter wrestler. Islam Makhachev showed that at the elite level, but Riddell's wrestling looked good, man. It looked good. Consider that this man is a primary striker. He just got discombobulated. He may have a mild concussion. Who knows where the hell he's at? And he's shooting nice in these takedowns. He looks physically strong. He's in excellent shape. And all this wrestling does is just slow down the pace a little bit, kill off a minute or two off the clock. Brad Riddell's able to recuperate. Fight resumes. And Brad Riddell's doing the better work. He's clearly down in the round. He got hit. He got hurt. And Dober's still marching forward. Dober's still landing well as well. There's no way Riddell's going to get this round back unless he hurts Dober or drops him, and he's just unable to do so. First round Dober, for sure. The way that they scored the previous fight, Eric Anders, as a 10-8 round in the third, on what basis? He got taken down. He didn't score a takedown. So he hits one reversal. He lands some pretty good ground and pound. He flirted with the idea of a submission attempt, and he got 2 10-8 rounds from 2 of the judges' scorecards. Whereas you just now had Drew Dober drop Brad Riddell. He was in a world of trouble. Does that not constitute a 10-8 round by their standards? Now, this is why I disagree, because, again, the Anders fight, you've seen 2 rounds, okay? So in that third round, that's the most decisive round. A 10-8 round, is appropriate. But this is the first round of a fight. A 10-8 round could now throw off the rest of the course of the rest of the fight. It was competitive. Brad Riddell landed excellent strikes in the first round, but he did get hurt. First round, Drew Dober. Second round, Riddell comes out, and man, his cardio is just on point. That was another reason why I felt safe with backing him, is that he never got tired. He does have excellent cardio. He has definite output. And again, that was one of the factors that I had given him in the preview, was that he had the output. He was going to win the volume battle. He might not have the power as Dober, but he was going to have that volume. Now in the second round, you're seeing the leg kicks are starting to add up. The body work's starting to add up. The shots he's landing straight up. And another advantage I'd given him was that he was slicker, and that starts to show in that second round. Because now all of a sudden, Dober's letting the right hand go, and my God, Riddell sees everything coming. Yes, he's getting hit here and there, but his vision is excellent. He got out of the way. He evaded a ton of those right hands. And what he would do is he'd slip and rip. He'd slip off the center line. Dober would miss the punch. He'd counter with the left hand. He's zinging Drew Dober. Big left hands. And Drew Dober is creating a legend for himself of the man that cannot be knocked out, because he just takes everything just so easy, man. And so the second round is definitely Brad Riddell. We got ourselves a 1-1, hoping that there's no 10-8 round in the first round. Again, I didn't score it that way, but the way the night goes, the way some of these Arizona judges were, you never know. In that third round, again, Brad Riddell's just a much fresher guy. And it wasn't like Dober had bad cardio. You put Dober in against 90% of the division, and they're now very tired and very hurt too. And he's going to be able to plot away at them and beat on them. But against Brad Riddell, it's like Brad Riddell looked like he was built for a 5-round fight. Consider he took all that damage in the first round. In the third round, yeah, he's still there. He's still there. He's still moving excellent. He's still throwing combinations. Everything's working. And again, it was his eyes. He'd see everything. He saw everything very clearly. So it was difficult for Dober to track him and put him into a difficult spot. Now, as Dober starts to get a little bit tired and a little bit frustrated, he starts to get a little bit sloppy. And when he get a little bit sloppy, Riddell would capitalize. Because here's another thing I was super impressed about him. He kept his focus for 15 straight minutes. Like, he was sharp. And that's what he needed to do. He couldn't slip up. He couldn't make a mistake. But from bell to bell, he was on the money, man. That should have been a precursor for Izzy. Again, I was on Vettori. We'll get to that in a bit. But it should have been a precursor that's like, these guys are operating at a very high level. You've got two guys on the card, the coach and the number one fighter from the gym. And man, Brad Riddell looks slick. So he's going to be a factor in for all these guys now in the top 10 of the division. He's going to be very exciting. The one knock would be maybe you take him down. Dober did score a takedown, but again, just like everybody else that has taken Brad Riddell down, you can't hold him down. And that'll be the real key going forward. Is I could see guys taking him down, but if they're unable to hold him down, he's going to be a serious problem. Now, last but not least, the fight goes the distance, but I felt so graced by that because, sorry, I forgot to mention probably the most, biggest thing in the third round. Brad Riddell's winning the third round, and then I don't know, maybe like 30 seconds left. Finally, he breaks on through. Finally, the Trojans break out of the wooden horse and just fucking run ramsack on the city. Like, he hurts Dober bad. And whereas Brad Riddell hadn't really shown the stopping power, all of his fights were going to decision. He lands excellent strikes in all of them, and the opponents, for the most part, take him. And Dober's just got such a great chin. He's taken everything all day. In that third round, he turns Dober upside down. And that's my case for this guy is going to be an excellent 5-round fighter. Dober hurt him bad in the first. Dober's power levels then decreased throughout the course of the 15 minutes. Riddell's hurt in that first. In the third round, he's carrying that same. He was just laser focused, man. It was an incredibly impressive performance. And again, I wouldn't be signing on the dotted line to fight this guy if I was a top lightweight. But you get 50 G's out of it because, whoa, that was a thriller. And it did get fight of the night. So props to that. Now, Paul Craig, Jamahal Hill effectively ruins my parlays in any sense. I had the PFL, Bellator, UFC parlays. PFL guys did their job, right? We had the 6-man was still going, the 12-man was still going. Bellator, 6-man going, 12-man going, all good. We're in this slot. We needed Brad Riddell, Eric Anders, Leon Edwards, and Jamahal Hill. He's the second biggest favorite on the card. He looks like he's going to go out there. He's going to get the knockout over Paul Craig. There's some emotion at the weigh-ins. Hill's fired up, but he's undefeated. He's talking about how he believes he's going to be a future champion. He's coming into his own. 6'4", 79-inch reach, southpaw. Dangerous for all these guys. And yeah, like, what's Paul Craig going to do? Is he going to stand with him? Like, not a chance. Is his wrestling good enough to take him down? Like, I don't know, man. His wrestling's really not all that good at all. But he's got one nasty submission game. That's what it's coming down to. Hill, if bout order was any different, if Leon Edwards fights before Jamahal Hill, we hedge out and make. So again, you maybe never hear from me again. But that was never an opportunity because Hill loses and really fucks some stuff up. Now, again, we're hitting fight goes the distance and no one's anything, but a blind man could tell you this thing ain't going over 1.5. So if there was a saving grace, it was that the under 1.5 hit, but like, not like this, man. Not like this. Jamahal Hill, there's no engagement on the striking, really. He realizes that Paul Craig's going to try to take him down, so he throws a left hand that just narrowly misses. But, he's a guy that's patient. On all of his fights, he is very patient. Even the OSP fight, he's got OSP hurt and wrong, and he does take his time with it in his approach. So he is taking his time good here. Paul Craig doesn't on the wrestling take him down. Okay, we knew that. That proves to be true, but shit, he pulls guard. Now, who pulls guard in the UFC in 2021? Right. Paul Craig does. And now, effectively, the fight is on the ground, which is exactly where he wants it. Jamahal Hill easily passes over to half guard, which is exactly what he needs to do. And from half guard, Paul Craig just wings on him with his overhook. Looks like he's got a nasty bite on the right arm of Hill. He's got the step over, but now he's got to worry about the cranking of the right arm, and he tries to pull it out. You see Paul Craig threaten with the arm bar, but Hill extracts his arm, good to go. And then fucking Hill re-engages Craig on the ground and sits back into his guard and immediately passes right back to half to the exact same position. Now, here's the fuck up. We knew this was striker versus grappler. We knew that Hill had the advantage all day striking. If it was standing, he had a great chance of knocking out Paul Craig. If this fight was on the ground, it was going to be Craig's advantage. He's got a sneaky submission game, and he's opportunistic. He showed from that very first scramble that even though you're from half guard, the safest position to be in He threatened with that arm, was immediately able to threaten with the armbar. When Hill decided to re-engage him and pass over to the same position, he put himself into fire. And what did Paul Craig do? He went to the exact same overhook. He cranked the arm. He threw up the legs. He snatches up the armbar and he fucking breaks his arm. He doesn't break his arm. He dislocates it. Worst stoppage from a referee in a very long time. Clearly, Hill's arm's dislocated. He's taking some massive shots from the bottom now from Paul Craig. And then Paul Craig, just for safe measure, locks in his patented triangle choke. Just in the event that this guy was to come back alive and pop his own arm back in place, he ain't going anywhere. He's dead to rights. It's all over. They could have stopped it at any point. They waited for Hill to. It looked like he was tapping, but it was his arm flailing around. And eventually, you do get the stoppage. Little Cody's dreams burnt up in flames. Jamahal Hill's undefeated record burnt up in flames. Paul Craig, whoa, man, what a hell of a performance, dude. Give this guy the 50K bonus. That was some scary shit. And you know what was cool about that and why you got to give it so much respect is that why was Hooper bet down as a favorite? Because of this presumption that it's like, oh, well, he's got a good submission game. He got the spots he wanted in that fight. He got the leg lock attempts. He got a position where he could have taken Peterson's back. In fact, in the third round, he did have Peterson's back, right? The Jordan Leavitt fight, you know, I believed he was a better grappler than he was. But again, it's the same shit. These guys are so one-dimensional, but their jiu-jitsu is really good. If you're going to be one-dimensional, that one dimension had better be good, my friend. And in Paul Craig's case, like, you know, he's beaten Magomed Ankalaev with the triangle. That's pretty dope. The Kenny Njoku triangle, to a lesser extent, pretty dope. You know, he's got these third-round buzzer-beater type performances. But the Vinicius Moreira fight, again, just loves that triangle. But this was badass. This was a clear reminder to anybody in the division that, like, do not follow him to the ground and do not play that bullshit. Now, I'm sure there's certain guys that can grapple with Craig for sure. But Jamahal Hill, at 27 years old and with like a 6-0 record, he was 8-0, so 8-0 record in 27. He's too young to. But this is a great learning experience. And listen, you guys know me. I always mention that a guy's got to lose to understand where did I go wrong. If Jamahal Hill goes out there and lands this left hand and knocks out Paul Craig, there's a good chance that the next fight, or maybe the fight after that, he puts himself back into danger because he didn't learn the lesson. But now he learned the lesson, and thankfully it didn't come at the expense of his arm. Because a broken arm, you know, you're on the shelf and you're not training at an elite level for months. You know, you might even have to rehab it depending how bad the break was. And this looked like it was a bad break, but just a dislocation, pops it back into place, live to fight another day. So take it as you can get it. Bilal Muhammad versus Damian Maia. Again, we're on Bilal Muhammad. We got fight goes the distance. We got the over. I mean, we're back to that path. Again, this is how I bet a lot of these cards, right? You can tell the fights that are probably going the distance, and you can tell the fights where it's like someone's going to have a serious problem, right? When you look at Carlos Felipe Collier, we talked about it, right? Not big power guys. Ziam versus Vendramini. Vendramini had never been a decision, so that one made it a little bit more worrisome. Hooper versus Peterson was very clearly going to go the distance. McKinney versus Fravola, you knew it wasn't. You knew Fravola was either going to get starched in the first round, which he did, or he had lost the first round and he'd beat McKinney. McKinney is an under 1.5 type fighter. That fight's not going the distance. Kanzad versus Davis, you know it's going the distance. Evoev versus Dawadu, you know it's going the distance. Murphy versus Calderwood, come on, you know it's going the distance. When you run into these explosive fights, like Jamahal Hill, Craig, it's like you bet the under 1.5, perfect. But Bilal Muhammad versus Damian Maia, you got to go back to history. And I know people are mentioning Damian Maia is 43, and he got knocked out by Gilbert Burns his last time out. Man, it was Gilbert Burns. Like he always fights the elite level guys. He's been knocked out twice in his entire career, and it's a very lengthy career. And again, he's fought all the elite level guys in the world. He's a durable guy. If he is to, for whatever reason, get into trouble, he's just going to go to his grappling, and he's going to be able to slow down the pace. To a lesser extent, like Brad Riddell, if I'm hurt, I'm just going to engage the grappling, buy myself time to recover. Damian Maia's got excellent ring IQ, and he's a guy that's able to recover. Now, Bilal Muhammad, meanwhile, is a decision machine. Talented, tough guy. You know, entertaining. I'm a fan of his, but like stopping power ain't exactly his thing, man. I mean, he did choke out Takashi Sato, but like outside of that, I mean, he's very much a decision guy. Even going back to when he was the Titan FC champ back in the day, like, you know, he can fight 5 rounds, but it's like 5 rounds of just like a grinding, same old pace. The way he matches up with Damian Maia was going to be a problem. The one thing is that in 15 UFC fights for Bilal Muhammad, he never fought a good wrestler, he never fought a good jiu-jitsu guy. If Damian Maia was a better version of himself, you know, if he's 2 years ago, God forbid he's 4 or 5 years ago, God forbid he's 6 years ago, you know, but if he's that version of him, he gets this fight to the ground, and when he gets this fight to the ground, he clearly outgrapples Bilal Muhammad. But at this advanced age of him, the takedowns weren't there, and when the takedowns weren't there anymore, the striking is just not there. Can Damian Maia strike? Yeah, he spent a lot of time working on it, but it's striking in pockets. It's that's what Hooper needs to learn how to do. Strike in pockets to get your takedown. But at this stage, he's striking pockets. He can't strike for 5 full minutes at a round. He needs to mix in those takedowns. When the takedowns weren't there for him, he was just going to fall behind on the scorecards. It plays out to be more of a sparring type match. And again, Bilal Muhammad's one of these guys that's going to grind on you a little bit. He's going to stuff the takedowns. He's going to land chopping right hand. He's just going to, it's a bit of a bog, but it's a very tough pace for a 43-year-old. And Damian Maia just never got anything going. I think Dana White went on record afterwards to say Maia's done in the UFC, and you could see the guy fighting elsewhere. Like, I don't think he shot. He didn't get knocked out. He didn't look like a complete fool, but certainly his days of competing at a world-class level are over. And for the UFC, you're paying the guy mucho dinero. Do I think he deserves that much money to fight Kanz? Yes, he's Damian Maia. You owe it to him. He's a legend. But the UFC doesn't agree with that assessment. The UFC believes he could go fight in Bellator and make $100,000. He's not going to sit here and lose to mid-level guys for that kind of price tag. And I'm sure I hope he's making more than 100,000, but that would be a show money regardless. Like, once these guys go out there and win the fight against the scrub, now they're getting paid big. And can you use him to make other guys look good? No, because it's hard to look good against him. Bilal Muhammad didn't exactly look great. Again, it's difficult to look fantastic against Damian Maia. First of all, and second of all, even if you do go out there and look great and beat him, the narrative is just like, you beat a 43-year-old man, so what? What does that mean? He's not the same Damian Maia he was of past. So you're actually in a lose-lose situation. The UFC spending a lot of money for some lackluster performances. So from a business side of things, I do get it. Damian Maia is looking up. He's on the cut block. For Bilal Muhammad, he came off the main event from Leon Edwards. It's a no contest. He gets a marketable enough fight in Damian Maia. He's ready for that bigger and better stuff. His entire career, for the most part, has consisted of beating guys that are no longer with the promotion or losing to that step up. But he is ready for that step up one more time, and then it's up to him there. If he loses it, he's going to get regulated to a gatekeeper status. But if he wins it, Bilal Muhammad's still young enough in his career and does have the skills that he could give some of the upper echelon guys. Definitely a difficult task. At the very least, headline a card again, a fight night, I'll bite. Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. I didn't agree with this fight getting booked as a 5-rounder. Didn't make sense to me. And on one hand, you got Nate Diaz. He's should be a 55er, but he's going to take this fight at 170. He hasn't fought in a long time. He's eating shrooms week of, smoking his doob. He's playing out to the fans. He's not ranked in the top 10. I don't even know he's in the top 15 of any division that he's in. He's just marketable because he's fucking Nate Diaz. He's a legend as well. Him and his brother, a lot of notoriety. He's got the win over Conor McGregor, which put him on a stratosphere as far as, the casual MMA fans concerned. Everybody knows him. The fans in Arizona who are my God, the worst fan base I've ever seen, like just booing everything. They went gaga for him. It does show that he's still got that drawing power, but like the competitive high level fighting side of things, I would make an argument that his best days are certainly behind him. And why would I need to see him in another 5-rounder? Then the other part of me has got Edwards, and I got Edwards by decision, and I got fight goes a decision. And the only way that Edwards finishes Nate Diaz is a cut stoppage. And I'm not the only one saying that. Clearly, everybody's on the same page. Nate busts up. He bleeds all the time. He's got a ton of scar tissue. He's had surgery to repair said scar tissue, but it just opens up. Have you ever seen a Nate Diaz fight? It's not a Nate Diaz fight, and you haven't seen it unless it's bleeding all over the place. And Nick was the same way. And so the extra 2 rounds was just like something's going to bust open in his face and open up. Now, again, that's how I believe the only way this fight gets stopped is on a cut stoppage. But it looks early on like the leg kick stoppage is in play as well, because Leon is just absolutely torching him. And even in the first round, midway through the second round, Nate Diaz is now peacocking. Like, he's just going to clowning tactics. He's bending over him and waving him on, showing him his ass, showing him the lead leg, grabbing the cage a little bit. It's all ring generalship, right? And he is using it like a savvy motherfucker. Like, he is using every trick in the book. He's not quite flipping him off at the time because that would only anger him, but he's waving him on. He's playing to the crowd, and all he's doing is just buying himself time because that lead leg is torched by the end of the second round. So I realize I'm in trouble here. Now in the third round, he gets busted up. He's got a massive cut, opens up from the elbow over the eye. He's had no success in this fight, by the way. The strikes, although he does have, the patented check left hook, and, he is throwing up a couple jabs here and there. He's getting beat to the punch routinely. He's half the speed that Leon Edwards is. The leg kicks are taking its toll. He's all bruised up. Mentally, he's always in the fight. He's Nate Diaz, but like you can tell that he's not pressuring. He's not getting his face. He's buying time. He's kind of like in survival mode, so to speak. And now he's bleeding all over the place. When the fight does hit the ground, there's not some great, he's not Paul Craig, he's not threatening with submissions right away. He's just, accepting position and getting chopped up with some short elbows. And Leon throws elbows like with the best of them. He throws elbows from almost every position. He's on the ground. He chops you up with elbows. He's in the clinch. He loves to chop up with elbows. On the break, man, he throws an excellent elbow. And he's one of the few guys that will, at range, extend on his punches. And as soon as that range closes up, he switches to the elbow, a short range weapon, and a lot more effective in that close distance. And like they're all working. Diaz looks like he got hit by a hacksaw on the side of the head. It's busted. They're not going to stop the fight on that cut because it's not getting in the way, but it looks nasty. And he's got a pair of cuts over the left eye. One of them looks really bad. Credit to his cut man. His cut man did a fantastic job going into the fourth because the eye is in bad shape. And again, I've got 10 more minutes and 2 more rounds. Edwards is going to win the fight. This much is in the bag. Very clear. But like this fight goes the distance, Edwards by decision. It's very much going up in flames here. But there's a reason why people love Nate Diaz. There's a reason why Nate Diaz is a fan favorite. Both Diaz brothers, again, it's because like they got heart. And that's something you can't teach. Skill is one thing. And we saw Nick lose a pile of fights because he was not always the most skilled guy in there. Guys like George would take it. Wrestlers were pretty much his kryptonite. Nate, meanwhile, is the sharper strikers, the better athletes, the better wrestlers. But there's one thing that those guys universally do not have on these two men, and that's heart, man. And that's like the will to win. This is not the first time he's taken a shellacking and lived to tell the tale. And in the fourth round, he starts to get a rhythm. Loses the fourth round, but certainly a better round than the first 3. He's keeping Leon honest for the most part. Leon is starting, I wouldn't say fatiguing. His body language looks, his facial expression especially, it looks like he's starting to get drained. It does not look like Leon is a 5-round guy. The third round with Gunnar Nelson, we all remember that when infamously he kind of fell apart. And there has been spots in Leon's career where the later the fight goes, he does kind of get tired. But he's still moving excellent. His strike selection is still excellent. He still does win the round. It's that Nate had a better round, and Nate's eye doesn't get touched up anymore. See, after the first 3, it's like if this thing gets opened up any worse, they might consider stopping this fight. But now that the fourth is competitive, more competitive, and the eye's not busted clean open, there's only one round to deal with. They're not going to stop it at this point. So now we got a 5th, and now I'm feeling great because it's 4-0 Leon. They're not going to stop it on a cut in the 5th. Nate just got some momentum in his corners, and the leg kicks are not even becoming a fact. They're not really hurting him that much anymore. His legs the nerves are dead from the knee all the way down to the ankle, from the hip down to the ankle. He can't feel it anymore. He's in zombie mode, and he's got a little bit of momentum. This thing's going the distance, and I'm going to win this. I'm going to hit all 3 of these tickets. Perfect. And that's why Nate Diaz is a fan favorite, ladies and gentlemen, because, again, that never say die attitude comes into play, and he very well kills all 3 tickets in one foul swoop. Because, yeah, man, when you refuse to go away, you keep yourself in the fight. The longer you keep yourself in the fight, there's going to be an opportunity at some point to capitalize. And the one mistake that he makes is in the 4th round, he landed a set of good left hands. Whenever it looked like he got Leon's attention, he would initiate the clinch. And I never understood why that was, because he wasn't able to get Leon to the ground. And I watched the fight with my dad, and he kept saying Diaz's only chance of finishing is if it's on the ground, right? Other than that, Leon Edwards is winning all of these rounds. He's winning these exchanges, and Nate's not really landing a whole lot. His best pass is to use the jiu-jitsu at this point. But I would think when he'd land that left hand, he'd clinch up. He still can't get the fight to the ground. So you can't get the fight to the ground. You haven't been able to get the fight to the ground for the entire time. When you're having a little bit of success with the stand-up, just keep running with it. He landed some good shots, but he would clinch up. Now you have the 5th round. He did the same thing. He let him off the hook. He stung him once, and he clinched up. He backs away, and then he absolutely puts him on wobbly legs, hurts him bad. I mean, it's Bambi on ice. Leon Edwards is definitely hurt. And instead of just bum rushing this guy and looking to put the job away, he puts both hands down. He walks towards him. He flips him off. It's a legendary move, man. The guy's going to go down in history as one of the most badass dudes to ever do the damn thing. But it was a bonehead decision. You were down 4 rounds. You needed a finish. Even a 10-8's not doing it for you. Even a 10-7's not doing it for you. You need to finish first and foremost. Don't clinch up with him. Don't try to take him to the ground. Just bomb on him. And that one moment where he just chooses to let him off the hook could, in hindsight, change everything. You'll never know. So Leon Edwards holds on. Leon Edwards clearly wins the fight. And like I tweeted out, Leon Edwards wins 24 minutes of a fight and gets a decision. And stock goes down, man. It didn't look that good. Usman's laughing at him. Fans are laughing at him. This was supposed to be a showcase, so he could get a title fight. No one's really interested in a title fight with Leon Edwards after that showing. I don't think. Maybe the UFC is. I don't know. Maybe a few fans as well, and certainly family members of Leon Edwards. I'm sure they agree with that assessment. But yeah, man, it's like Diaz got beat up for 24 minutes. I mean, beat up. And the way that fight finishes, it's like, dude still got it. That was badass. Fan favorite. Crazy moment. Good times. Anything short of actually getting the knockout, which should have been the way to go. But again, it's hard to get a guy out at that point. It's pretty cool. And here, to go full circle here, I'm the guy that did not care to see this as a 5-round fight. I thought 3 round was enough. Didn't really need to see it. And 3 rounds of this fight would have been terrible, right? It would have been a 30-26, a 30-27 Leon Edwards. Kicked his ass pretty easily. Nate bled all over the place. We'd be saying that Nate's career is done. He's not elite anymore. UFC wouldn't be willing to pay this guy any big bucks moving forward because, his shine just got taken off him and all that. And he still loses. And all that is still true. 1 minute. Give me 1 minute, Rock. That 1 minute made everything. And now Diaz's stock's up. He's going to get a good fight next time out. Super entertaining. And Leon Edwards is the one looking bad. So crazy. But I will leave you with this. In the real world, these two guys are on an island, right? And they're both hungry. And there's one coconut left in the middle of the jungle. And they both fight over it, okay? Nate Diaz is walking out of that jungle fucking drinking coconut milk. Bet you that. Because in a 5-round fight, Leon Edwards did enough to, on the judge's scorecard, get the job done. But in the jungle, he would have not put him away. That blood would have ran everywhere, and Diaz would have prevailed as he always does, and he would have kept himself in long enough to land that left hand. And when he did land that left hand, he would have beat him to death. At some point. If the UFC did 6-round fights or 7-round fights, Diaz is a problem for anybody because he just does not go away. Great fight, super entertaining. The result we wanted, and had Jamahal Hill won, would have been the greatest night of all time. But that's the betting game. Those are the highs and lows of things, and that's why you got to keep moving. Followed up by another good read. Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Just keep in mind, right? This could have been a fight where you just betted on the plus money status of Brandon Moreno, but they just fought not all that long ago. The fight's a draw, very competitive. Brandon Moreno has plenty of opportunities in the fight. And Brandon Moreno took that fight on short notice. He's 27 years old. He is almost certainly going to continue to make improvements for the next 3 years, at least. He's going to be better, fight to fight. He just went 5 rounds with the world champion, who everyone says is the GOAT, and he gets a draw out of it. Oh, yeah, point deduction, why he got the draw. Gave a good account of himself. And now this man is a 2-1 underdog in the exact same fight. That I couldn't figure out. And yeah, we all had it pre-fight, but then when Figueiredo made weight, that's when a few people had cause for concern. Now it's crazy. It's because there's always two trains of thought. It's why you can't please everybody, right? There's always going to be one side and the other side. When he weighed in, it's like, he looks like shit, no? You get 2 hours to make weight. You have a window, a specific window. If you do not weigh in by said window, fight's off. Not bites off. You've officially made weight, and now you got to forfeit some purse and all this and that. In this case, it's a title fight. The title fight would have been off. He waited into the last 45 seconds. There was a minute left, and he came on the scale. That's your indication that he needed all the way to the very end to make it. And he strips down butt naked and uses the curtain, does look drained. If I had Moreno beforehand, which I did, I feel way better about it now. And half the people I see online agree. And some money does start to come into Moreno. The other half are in on the weight. They're in on it. Oh, Figueiredo does that all the time. He looks good to me. Clearly, you haven't seen him pull out the curtain and get butt naked for all of his other weigh-ins. It's like, Yeah, but that's not good, man. That's a bad sign. He's 32. So that's the flip side. I know Moreno is going to be making improvements. I know it. I do not think Figueiredo is making any improvements. He is who he is. He's got killer power in both hands. He's got a nasty guillotine choke. That's about it. I don't think his cardio is as bad as people make it out to be, but a bad weight cut will do that to almost anybody. Once your organs start to shut down and you're dehydrated and your joints start to lock up, you're not fighting through it. You're going to look like shit. He looked like shit from the second the fight started until the second the fight ended. He got a takedown in the second round, and I guess that was like the one small glimmer. Didn't do much with it. Briefly threatened with the guillotine choke. But outside of that one takedown, a little bit of top control, this did not look like the same guy. Now, they fought not all that long ago. Davidson's got both hands down, walking straight through at Moreno. He's laser fast on the counterpunch. There's shots coming from both angles, both hands, and he's just great volume attack. Months later, hands up, doesn't want to engage. Not letting his hands go, stays to the outside. Gets outworked by Brandon Moreno. Clearly outworked from Brandon Moreno in the first. Scores the takedown in the second. Why is he fishing the takedowns? See, in the first fight, he's just looking to knock Moreno out and does a very spectacular job of landing some great shots, right? Moreno is trying to take him down, and the guy just explodes back up to his feet every time. Now it's roles reversed. Moreno's looking to knock him out standing, and Figueiredo's the one looking for the takedown. Does get the takedown. Briefly threatens with the guillotine choke. Moreno has been caught in a guillotine in the past, but, obviously something he's worked on, improved. And once he escaped and he got back up, he steals the round back. There's a second round Moreno as well. Again, I saw some people score for Figueiredo. On what? A takedown, and he got clasped the neck with one arm. There was no damage. There's no ground and pound. Moreno worked him. And then the third round, this is what kills me. This close. Jamahal Hill blows a legendary night. But Cody's got an ace in the back pocket that is going to pay $6,000 on a $100 bet, and everything else is hit. And I just need the over 2.5 here. And I missed it by 4 seconds. So the highs and lows of the MMA game. It wasn't a bad night overall, but you always look at money that you could have won as money that you lost, even though you didn't lose it. You never had it. But it was 4 seconds, man. Hill has the most unfortunate ending to a fight, and then I lose an over-under by 4 seconds. What can you do there? Moreno wins. He's going to be a scary threat at flyweight. He's got great pace. Again, he's only going to continuously getting better. And where do you beat the guy? Because his striking is clearly improving leaps and bounds, getting to a whole another level. His wrestling is solid. It's something he's worked on for a long time. He either trains in Colorado or Mexico City. Both places, mile high in the air. Altitude's great. His pace is great. And he's got a cast iron Mexican chin. He's another one of these guys that's not going to go anywhere. He's going to keep attacking you the entire time. And it was a career best performance out of him from the last fight to this fight. And last time he was short notice. This time full camp. He looked incredibly better. But the one little asterisk is that Figueiredo looked awful. And now I would reason, if you're the UFC, you probably try to book a trilogy, right? They drew the first time, but people thought Figgy won. Brandon Moreno runs. What would he even be as a favorite going into the... Actually, that's the funny thing. The first one's a draw, and yet Figgy's a big favorite in the rematch. And so this one clearly goes Moreno's way. You would think Moreno would be the big favorite if they were to run it back. And was it a bad weight cut? Maybe. But this is what I'm getting at. The UFC might want to run it back. I don't think it's the logical move to run back. I think Figueiredo's days at 125 are over. Because again, he's not a younger guy that can still wreak havoc on his body with these weight cuts. He's 32. He's a millionaire. He's won a UFC world title. He's defended the world title. He's won some slick bonuses along the way. He's had some marketable opportunities and some good sponsors. He has money. At 32, being his size, it's not good. And every time you do it, it's worse the next time. And it's worse the next time. And it's worse the next time. And we all know he's the biggest flyweight on record. I haven't seen a flyweight bigger than this guy. And the few flyweights that were big guys almost always go to bantamweight. And at 32, when would be the right move to go to bantamweight? Now, is he going to be an elite level bantamweight? That I'm not so sure about. Now, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say his big power at 25 is not going to quite translate at 35. He's not going to put these guys out. His wrestling defense is not all that good. His get-up game is solid. I'll give him that. He's got a very, very solid get-up game. But still, if they're taking him down, it looks good for the judges. If they're grinding on him, looks good for the judges. And his little just pull guard in this guillotine choke, they're gonna start to snuff it out. They're gonna start to realize Don't put your head in that position. This is how he sets it up. Moreno slick to it too. What he does is he baits you, like he allows you to hit the sweep. So as you get up, you bury the head, and then he pulls guard on it. And he did that against Moreno, but Moreno saw the whole thing coming. So he's going to be a lot less effective at 135, but he'll have more energy, more cardio, should have better durability, and he won't look like that from last night. And what he looked like last night was not a world champion, is all I'm saying. But great performance for Brandon Moreno. And then we move on to the main event, and yeah, I thought it was going to be new ×2. Nah, just one. Moreno got the title, first ever Mexican-born champion. Unfortunately, Vettori not able to come up as the first Italian-born champion. And solid performance for Israel Adesanya. The impressive takeaway for me personally, every fight you learn more. You fade a guy because you think he might not have this, but then hopefully you learn more from it. So with Adesanya, the Jan fight, I thought he won the first 2 rounds on the basis of his striking. We all know how good his striking is. Nobody's been able to beat him in a striking battle. So you got to mix in the takedowns. Jan mixes in the takedowns, gets his fight to the ground. That's how he wins. When Jan would take him down, Izzy's a fish out of water. Vettori needs to go out there and do the same thing. They have fought before. Vettori was able to take him down in the 3rd round. If Vettori can go out there, mix in the striking a little bit, pressure him, take him down, that's the key. But here's where Izzy made his improvements. The takedown defense looked largely improved. But beyond that, his get-up game looked good. He got a kick caught in the 1st round, and Vettori did end up taking him down. At this point, as a guy that's got Vettori, and again, I got fight goes the distance over 3.5, so that all worked out well. But as a guy that's got Marvin Vettori on the straight up, the takedown in the 1st round, caught kick, again, wasn't a clean takedown. But this is money, man. This is our position. Grind him for the 1st round. Same thing he did against Kevin Holland. Take some energy out of him, and then let's bank around, and then let's do this moving forward. But see, Kevin Holland's a BJJ black belt, and a guy that was throwing up some arm bars and triangles up against Jacare, ends up knocking him out from his back. Apparently knows how to grapple. Apparently not, because Izzy's no black belt. Izzy looked way more comfortable on the ground than a guy like Kevin Holland, and he had that ability to scramble and get back up. He's physically strong. Once he gets up to a hip, he's able to force himself back up. I thought Vettori, being juiced to the gills, would be he's a meat head. He's a meat everything. He's a big, thick slab of meat. This guy ends up on top of you. He should be able to hold you down and rough you up a little bit, but not the case. Izzy gets back up, and when Izzy gets back up, there is just leaps and bounds difference in the striking department. The leg kicks there all day. The jabs there all day. He's so long and rangy, very difficult to get in there. That head kick comes out of nowhere, man. He almost disguises it like it's coming to the body or the leg, and all of a sudden it comes up top. Vettori did an excellent job of blocking them or ducking under them, but again, you're playing with fire the entire time you choose to stand with this guy. 2nd round, Vettori can't get him to the ground as he walks through the park on him. 3rd round, Vettori comes out, and he gets the takedown, right? So this is a huge moment. You're down 2. You need to win the last 3. Starts the round. He goes right after him. He presses him right up against the cage. He gets the takedown. He gets on top, looking great. Izzy just rolls and pops back up. 5th round, I think there was a takedown again. Izzy rolls. He gets popped back up. If you're going to now be able to get up and stuff a few takedowns, now you're forcing them to stand with you. None of them can stand with you. If they're able to take you down and grind you, that was their path. I thought Vettori, we knew he was durable. He's got a brick head on him. He's a cement head. He's going to keep coming after you. As far as 5 rounds go, yeah, he went 5 rounds his last 2 fights, so cardio seemed to check out. And again, it's a world title fight, so he's going to be in career best shape. He took everything that Izzy had, and he lived to tell the tale, but he got beat up, man. I mean, he got 50-45 across the board. If you were a Vettori, if you were a Vettori backer, maybe you got a 49-46. But a very dominant performance for Adesanya. Can he go up to 205 and factor in with those guys? No, because again, now you're going to be smaller. Now the get-up game is a lot harder. Now the takedown defense is a lot harder. They're bigger guys. But as far as middleweight goes, Yoel Romero is no longer on the roster. If you can't go out there and take him, and he didn't even try to take Izzy down for whatever bonehead decision. Who knows? But yeah, if you're not taking him down, you need to stand with them. It's going to be a problem. So lesson learned for me. Again, it's always lesson to be learned. I know I probably took a lot of flack from people who are big Israel Adesanya guys. And your boy won. Your boy looked good. He did exactly what he had to do. Would you have wanted a knockout? Sure, I'm sure he would have as well. But that's about as good as it gets without knocking somebody out. I mean, he definitely served Marvin Vettori a piece of humble pie. And Vettori, with 27, he's not going nowhere. He's definitely going to be back. The problem he's going to have is he's now 0-2 against Israel Adesanya. And the first time was a split decision. You make an argument for him. Wow, I mean, he makes an argument for him. Nobody else did. One judge apparently did. Other than that, but this one was not competitive, right? This one, he got his ass kicked 50-45. So What kind of win streak will Marvin Vettori have to go on to get another Israel Adesanya fight? It's not going to happen. So you're going to be Joseph Benavidez to Demetrius Johnson. You're going to fight all the number one contenders. You're going to fight all the best guys. And if they beat you, they'll get the title fight. And if you beat them, they just go back to the bottom of the packing order. But like he's got a big, and again, he's only 27. He will get another title shot at some point, but he's going to have to win 4, 5, 6 fights in a row. And I mean, that's a difficult task at an elite level. And yeah, I mean, tough outing for him in that regard. But again, I think against a lesser man, Marvin Vettori rolls. He was trying to press the action. He landed some decent shots against Israel Adesanya standing. His cardio didn't look bad. He was game. In his mind, he had his hand up going into the decision. Like, he thought he won. He's got that supreme self-confidence and durability off the charts. Like, I want to meet the guy who's going to put Marvin Vettori away in a 15 or 25 minutes. 25 minutes, your best scenario. 15, you're definitely not putting him away. But yeah, man, it's like he just kept chugging along, doing a good account of himself. But that's when you see that there's levels to this shit. Izzy's at a different level. If he didn't have to move up to 205, if that fight never took place, he's sitting at 21-0. He'd be undefeated. He'd be one of the greatest middleweight champions of all time. I don't think he's quite past Anderson yet, but what else does he have to do? He's beating everybody that he can. He'd be in GOAT conversations, and it'd be everywhere. But he put himself out of his comfort zone to chase ultimate glory, and it didn't work out for him. That doesn't take away from the reign at 85. So my mistake. Israel Adesanya, still the king of the 185-pound division for the foreseeable future. So fun fights, some fun bets. Again, the overs saved me, but so close. Next week, we got a PFL coming up. We got another UFC. And yeah, I mean, I'd say let the good times roll, but it was like the good times are so close. They were so there. The good news is, just like any other marathon, you're going to have it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to have another chance at it. We got some more chances next week. I'm glad you guys joined me for the journey. And again, you don't have to tail these picks. You could always take your own stuff. You could always say, oh, geez, Cody thinks this. I disagree. Take the point. Make a counterpoint. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up in the comment section. Whatever you want. Love to chat fights. And we'll head over to the next one and hopefully get it right this time. That PRP, it's in the books. It's happening. I hope that wasn't shit I smelled.